I don't know about you, but sometimes I get craft supplies and I don't really get around to making anything with them. So I just wanted to make this video using this Papercraft Society kit that I purchased. I purchased it on clearance in January, but this is from March of 2021. It's Papercraft Society Box number 17. If you don't know about Papercraft Society, it's a subscription box service for crafts, and it's really great because they have lots of different kinds of paper crafts that you can explore, different styles. I don't subscribe to it, but when I see one that I like, I get it. This is one that I liked, especially it was on clearance. So let me show it to you. This is the Paper Discovery Papercraft Society Box by Olga Direktorenko. All the supplies come in a nice box, and with this sort of paper folder. I've taken it all out. Anyway, let me show you what's in it. You get this stamp set with lots of nice sentiments. You're never too old for a tea party. There's always time for tea and cake. Life is like a cup of tea. It's all about how you make it. But first tea, you're terrific. New home. Home sweet home, and welcome. Now, some of these stamps have dies that go with it, and some of them don't. This set that shows the teapot, the sugar, and the creamer has it's a stamp with a die that goes with it. This plant has a die to go with it. These little sweets right here, it's one stamp, and the die is one die. So I think it would be fairly easy to stamp and then die cut that with success. Now some of these others are, well, let me show you the dies and then I can explain about it. I really love this. This is what sold me, this set. This die cuts out this cabinet, and then this part right here is not cut out, but you could take these and cut that shape out of that area. This part is cut out like little shelves. This part is not cut out. This can be a little drawer. Here are the handles for the drawer, but also they can be handles for those doors. And then you could fill up these shelves with lots of fun things that you stamp and die cut. And then some of these dies, like these and these, don't have a coordinating stamp that goes with them, but the shape itself, it doesn't need an outline for you to know what it is. So I really liked that. What they do have are these flourishes that you would stamp on top of it. So you can imagine that you would stamp this circle, sort of a frame inside the plate or the platter. And then some of these other little like flowers and leaves could go on, you know, the teapot or in the middle of the plate or on the teacup. So I have big plans for that. I will show you what I mean. And then this sweet little spoon, I think that would be just really sweet, just cut out of a silver metallic card. So that's the stamps and the dies. You also get, I'll just show you quickly what else you get in here. This is a embossing folder. What's nice about this is that it doesn't emboss in the center. So you sort of have a framed embossed area where you could put a sentiment nicely. These inks come with it, a gray, a bright blue, and a darker blue. Get this metallic thread. These pearls, some of the pearls flipped in the packaging, but they're all shiny. Those are just flipped upside down. They have a card here with tips for, well, these are sketches for cards that you can make with the kit. That's nice. Also, you get paper, coordinating cardstock, and then some patterned paper in nice colors. I don't know, can you see that? I wasn't too fast through it, but well, let me go nice and slow. You get green, a couple of gray designs, pink designs, and then this I think is stunning. I'm not going to use those today. I have another idea. And then also the Papercraft Societies come with this little magazine with ideas of things that you can make with it. Here's a layout that shows you everything that's included with the box. I think I've got everything that I showed you. It says it's worth £60. I can't remember how much I paid for it, but I think it was less than $20, 20 US dollars. Anyway, let's get started. So this is a prototype of the project that we'll make today. I just wanted to make sure that it worked, that I liked the design, that it fit, etc. But I'm going to make a really colorful version of this. I'll show you what I've picked for my colors. This is a trifold. It's an easy way to make a trifold. I used a card base, a regular A2 card base, and then made another panel that you can see. I glued a tab on to the back. I'm going to make the tab a little bit longer because I'm using a thicker, I'm actually using watercolor paper for the card base, and I want to make sure that that fold is nice. When it's a narrow fold, sometimes it's hard to get a nice crease. First, let's start making the card base. I'll keep this off to the side so we can reference it. But we have two. This is, again, watercolor paper. This is regular A2 size, 8.5 by 5.5. We're going to put it on the 8.5 side. I'm going to put the nice side of the watercolor paper down, and I'm going to score it at 4.25. Now because, oh boy, I slipped right off. Because of this is thicker cardstock, I'm going to really try and get down in there. I don't want to crease. I don't want to make a, what do you call it? Crack. I don't want to crack the paper when I fold it. It's not really going in there very well. Let me turn it and do it this way. I wasn't really, because it's so thick, it's hard to feel that track. Oh, that's why I keep going off of it. We're good now. Sorry. Okay. Okay. And then this is 4, not 4.5, but 4 3/4. And I'm going to score that at 4.25, and I'm going just really carefully, a little at a time, and then I'm going to go the other side to meet where we just were. It's just really hard to find the score track through this hard, heavy watercolor paper, so I'm just going kind of slow. It's easy to go off track, so I think I met there, and then I'm going to turn it over and do the whole thing on that side. That just sort of makes it an easier fold to make. Okay, and I'll go ahead and fold that and crease. And so that's a nice square, beautiful straight line. Okay, and so then what we'll do is we can go ahead and fold and crease that. Okay, so this is a regular card. It will open up like that. And then what we'll do is glue that tab to the back of that card. You may have to just trim off a little bit of this panel to make sure it, especially after you glue it, to make sure that it still closes. If it's too close to that fold line, you might have some resistance. So you would just shave off a little bit. Okay, so that looks nice. Let me show you what I've picked out for colors, etc. So for the cabinet, I really like this nice blue color. I like this blue color. I cut out a few, cut out 4 of them, I think. And the reason is I want to stack them on the front to give it some dimension. Also in the inside, I want to just glue 1 in to cover up the aperture that will create there. Okay, so that will look something like that. And then I just thought this was like a fun watercolor looking paper. Not watercolor, sorry. I just thought this would make a fun, wild kind of wallpaper. Wallpaper is the word I was looking for. And so that would go behind. I think that looks really fun together. Now, it won't have this as the background of the shelf because if you remember, we're going to cut an aperture there. And then this, whatever is in the background of this paper, will be what's in the shelf background. And for that, I chose this paper. So you can sort of, let's just stage it, see how it looks. Something like that. I think that is really fun. All right, so again, if I line the top up with that stitched edge, and then I lined the bottom of that leg with this stitched edge, I can see, let's see, that sort of tells me where to cut that off. I want to leave enough room to glue it, but so it looks like, oh, actually under that bump. So I'm going to cut it after the 1-2 bump, and I'm going to use that area to glue it to the back. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I have 4 legs for the front, 4 legs for the back. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and glue these down just so that I can be sure that the aperture is in the right place. So let me move this aside, and I'll keep this here because that's going to help us know where to glue our legs. We put that right in the center there. Okay, and then, okay, you might ask why 4 legs? Well, let me show you. Okay, so you can see there, that one makes sense to have a leg in the front and a leg in the front here. Oh boy, sorry, I'm getting this, it's a little bit fussy. Now, if I wanted this to look 3-dimensional though, you know that there are also legs in the back, somewhere along that. I'm going to use this little dip right there in the die cut to tell me where that is. And of course that leg would be just back a little bit. They wouldn't line up with this front one because of the perspective. It would go back a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get that glued down, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, all right, so that looks good to me. The other thing is that I want this cabinet to be 3 papers thick, just to give it some dimension. So I've cut those, and I'm going to do that now so that I can, I'm going to line them up, glue them and line them up, because if I wait till I've glued it to the card base, it'll be hard to do this kind of thing. You couldn't do this. And this is how I make sure that it's lined up, is by using my fingers and pushing them together. Does that make sense? So let me just really quickly glue those together. All right, so that feels really nice and substantial and solid to me. I really like how that feels. Okay, so the next thing, now that we have that all together, glued together, now we can know exactly where we want to put that aperture. So for the aperture, I'm using this die. This is from an Eileen Hall Can't remember which one. I can look it up if anyone's interested. But basically you want a die that is just a little bit bigger than that hole for the shelves. This doesn't give us a lot of wiggle room, but I don't think we're going to need a lot of wiggle room. Now the other thing is this, we want it to cut through, not the cabinet, but this card, and then also the card base, the front of it here. This is watercolor paper. I know it's tough for even this die to cut through even just the watercolor by itself. It's going to be really tough for it to cut through both the front, this card panel, and the card base. But what I'm going to do to make sure that I can line it up exactly right and get those, when I glue it, exactly right. If I glued it down and then cut through it, I'm out of luck if it doesn't glue through. It doesn't cut through, sorry. If it doesn't cut through both of those. But what if I just take a little bit of temporary tape and put my card panel down in place with just a little bit of temporary tape. I'm going to put it down in a couple of places because I don't want it to shift. I can see I've got a little bit extra room on the bottom, so let me do that again. Let me make sure I get this pretty centered. Does that look good? I think that's pretty good. All right, there's not a lot of surface for this tape to stick for the card base, so that's another reason to do it in 3 or 4 different places. And let's get our alignment good. So again, I'm using these stitch lines here and here to know the top and the bottom, and then just using my eye to know the center for the cabinet. And I think that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is hold that down with my hand and then sneak this in underneath. And I want to make sure I get that all the way over like that. Okay. So I know now the top part should be, I think that's going to be pretty good. I could go over a little there. Okay, let me lift this up. All right, I want this to be straight too. That looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to run it through with both the card panel and the card base through it. It won't make it through both of those, but what it will do is make an indentation on the card base, the watercolor paper, and that will let me know where to place the die when it's just the die and the watercolor paper. So I'll cut that up and I'll be right back. So let me show you what I mean. Oh, you know what? I was wrong. That did cut through both of them, so that's pretty good. I'm glad that it did. It cut through both the pretty patterned paper and the watercolor paper. So surprise, surprise. I did use the chrome precision plate for it, and maybe that gave it enough of a pressure to cut through both. So if you are worried about it, just try it that way and you might be lucky like I was. So okay, so what we're going to do now is glue this card panel to the card base. The next thing that I'm going to do is glue this panel to the inside panel. Well, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and glue this trifold part to the back of this card. And now we're ready to glue the cabinet to the front. And all we need to make sure that we do is get it pretty centered and cover up that aperture. But you can see how sweet that's looking just already, right? Okay, the next thing we want to do is here's a fourth piece of the die cut, and I'm going to glue that on the inside. But before I do that, I also want to put the legs on this one. Okay. Now I will glue this to the inside. Okay. Now let's glue. Oh, hey, what happened there? Okay, we've got the cabinet built. We've got the inside of the cabinet ready to go. Next, we will fill the cabinet. Okay, I'm going to try and show you this next part, although it's not showing up very well on camera. What I'm going to do is take these flat die cuts. They're just, they're cut out of watercolor paper and they're just flat. And I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow on the side just to make them look three-dimensional. What I'm using are two colors of Tombow watercolor markers. This is number 565 and 879. And I'm going to combine these colors. I'm using my palette on the side, just drawing these right onto the palette. And I'm going to combine these colors to make a natural looking shadow. These are colors, this idea of making a shadow with these colors comes from Bonnie Kreb of Art Impressions. So what I'm going to do, I'll start with this one teapot. I'm going to wet my brush. I'm going to mix the colors. I'm going to mix them with a lot of water because I want the color to be kind of light. I don't want it to get too muddy either. Okay, after I've mixed it, I'm going to dip my brush in water. I'm going to pinch it off so that I don't have too much water. I want to be really in control of how much water I'm adding to my die cut. This is so tiny, and it can get away from you if you, if you're working with a lot of color, if you're working with a lot of water. So, okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of color on my brush. I need to tell you too, I'm not an expert at this by all means, but what I'm doing is just adding a little color to the sides and to the bottom. That's where the shadow would be. And then across this rim, just underneath that rim, the top right there, would be a shadow. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the sides of the top, and then also underneath here, and then underneath the spout would be dark. Okay, and then I'm going to wet my brush. I'm going to pinch it off so there's not any extra water in it, but there's no color in it. And so what I'm going to do is use it to drag this color to the center, and it will sort of soften that color and just make it look more natural. Up here too, I'm going to add a little bit more water. You have to just be very careful not to add too much water because it can get away from you in a hurry. So I'm just going to pull that in, Okay. And it is so subtle that you almost can miss it. But when I show it to you up close, I hope that you're able to see what I've done. I'm adding a little bit more blue. I just think the blue is a nice, it's nice for these teapots and this china to have a little tint of blue. Now that was wet, so you might have seen that it bloomed a little bit. This got a little bit messy. a little bit more water than I meant for it to have, but I think it's going to dry fine. Let me see if I hold that up, if you're able to see it, if the camera's focusing. I hope that that's in focus. Okay, let's do another one. All right, let's do the teacup. I think the teacup's an easy one to do, maybe because it's smaller. What I'm going to do, okay, I'm wetting my brush, getting color. I'm going to pinch it off, and I'm just going to add a stripe of color. Ooh, not enough. Stripe of color on the side and on this side. Okay, then I'm going to wet my brush, pinch it off, and then just sort of soften that line. Okay, and you know what? I'm just going to stop it there. I don't want to get muddy, and it can easily get muddy. Then I'm going to make the handle blue-ish, if I can. Okay. That bloomed a little bit, but I think it's going to be okay. Okay, so yeah, maybe that's too much. Let me just take out a little bit of that water. Okay, and soften that. That turned out pretty good. So let me show you what that looks like. Let me see if my tweezers will help. Okay. Maybe you could see that. I don't know. It's hard to see this on camera. So I'll just continue doing this with the round shapes, adding this would be a round one too, the canister, adding darker color on the sides, and then sort of feathering it out so that it's lightest in the middle, because that's the part that's closest to you. So that's all of the rounded ones. That's the pitcher, that's the canister, teacup, and the teapot. All right. I'll show you these teacups in a minute, but let me just show you quickly what I'm going to do with the platters, which are not rounded. But they look funny when you leave them just white when you have other pieces that are shadowed. So what I'm going to do is just take my combination and then just sort of give it a wash. Okay, so it is a little bit darker on that side. It just gives it, I'm not sure where the shadows would be on this, but oh, that's a little too brown. If you put too much color, don't worry, you just add more water and that will it'll be like an eraser. It will just pick it right back up. And I'm going to add some blue. And I'm just going to bring that on across. It's so subtle. I'm not even sure you can see that on camera, but I'm going to do that with all of those. So for the stack of teacups die, all we are going to do is use our pencil to mark where each of the teacups, individual teacups are. That's actually a handle there. And then this one goes around like that. This one sort of goes up like that, sort of tilt back. And this one, I think we'll see a little bit of the inside part. And that's the handle. Okay, so I think that's about right. And then we can use your watercolor to just very lightly go over those lines. Okay, because that would be dark there, and then inside the handles will be dark. And then because, you know, these teacups are round, it will be dark on the outside, like that, and then lighter in the middle. I'm going to use just clean water and just bring that to the center. Sort of soften that edge. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is to decorate the china pieces with the stamps that go with them. I'm going to use these little decorations. They're so tiny. I'm going to use the two blue inks that come with this set, and then a tiny little stamp block, acrylic block. I'll start with this tiniest little flower, and I'm going to do, let's do a teacup with it. So let's make some room. I think I'll do it with the darker color blue. And is this in frame? Sure it is. Okay, and I'm just going to stamp, get some ink on it, and then say a little prayer. And maybe what I could use is my pokey tool. Okay, and then I'm just going to, with confidence, press it down. And then I'll let it go with my pokey tool. And ta-da! Look how fabulous that is, right? Let's do another one with the same color ink. And then confidently smoosh. And that turned out better than I thought. Okay, and now I think I'm not going to wash my stamp. I'm going to just sort of combine that color ink with the lighter one. See how that looks? It's a different look. And then let's just keep going. Same stamp on that teacup. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to work on is this little thing of books. I'm not going to use the stamp, but I'm going to use the stamp to help me know in all of these little ones that I've cut out where the books are. I've started doing it here. What I'm going to do is paper piece these books together, so that it looks like a real stack of books. So to do this, I'm going to use my finger blade. I'm going to use this ruler, even though this is not a metal edge, which is what you would normally want to use when you're cutting it. I'm able to push it flatter than my metal ruler that I have, because this is so small. When you go to cut it, it shifts so easily. So I've already I've cut 2 of the books. Let me just glue that one down. I'm using this blue die cut piece as my guide for gluing these down, or just so that I know where they go together, and also I have a place to glue them down. And I don't need much glue, you just need a little bit, and you just put it in next to the other one. A little bit messy with that glue, but that works. Okay, so the next one I'm going to do, I think I'll do with this darker color. Or maybe I'll use this yellow color. And what we're doing is cutting out this 3rd book. And I'm going to hold my ruler there. Get my finger blade. Hold my ruler right there. And then I'm going to cut very confidently. Okay. And then this is such a tiny one here. And then I don't need that. And then I'm going to line up this edge. And then hold my finger right there. Okay, that's a thin one. Okay, It might be a little bit thinner than the one in the stamp, but let's see. Will it work? I think that'll work. This time I think I'll put the glue down here. You don't need much. And slide that into place. Okay. All right, the next one. Let's make the next one. That was yellow. Let's do this. Let's make the next one green. So that would be, let's do our orientation, right? That would be 1, 2, right next to the short one. Okay, and I'm gonna get it into place. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to keep doing that until I have all of the books covered, the spines covered, and they're all in different colors. Okay? Okay, as you can see, I made a lot of those pottery pieces, and I have my books in, and I'm ready to glue everything down. So I'm going to glue everything down. The things that are in sort of the foreground, I'm going to pop up on pop dots. So that would be this picture, this cup, maybe not this canister, because I actually like the way that that spout of the teapot looks over that canister. And I'm not going to pop up the teapot because I don't want that handle to get in the way of opening this card. So what I'm going to do is use a pencil to mark where those shells are, sort of as guides. That I'll just erase that when we're done, but that will give me an idea of the area that I'm working with, and then I don't have to work through the front to glue those in. Okay. Okay, so all right, so I'm going to put you on high speed and I'm going to glue those things down. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do, and I almost forgot, is to put the cabinet doors on and the drawers, both here and inside. On the outside, I'm going to pop those up on foam. On the inside, I'm going to glue them directly to the cabinet because I don't want to add bulk to the card. All right, I'll get to that. Okay, so there you have it, our completed card. I'm so pleased with how this looks. I think it looks just so charming, like a little storybook illustration. The doors of the cabinet are popped up on foam, as well as that drawer, and then this pitcher and teacup are popped up on foam, and I think that just adds just a nice little amount of character. And then when you open it up, those items are sort of just floating there, and I like that. I like how that looks. And then inside, look how much room you have to write a friendly note. You could also include a little tea bag here. I think that would be really sweet. And I think this would also be an interesting element to add to a journal. You could do this as a page that opens up to another page with the items in it. That would be really sweet. You could add it as a trifold into a book and then add journaling. I just think this is a sweet idea. Now this kit is no longer available, as I mentioned before. You can try and source it through eBay or something like that. But I'm going to link to a similar cabinet and similar set of teacups and all, also from Paper Discovery through Craft Stash. And then also I found a cabinet. It's one of those die sets that it's unclear. It's not a named manufacturer that you get through Amazon from China. And it's a little sketchy because you don't know if they've actually have the rights to use that die or not. I'm going to confess, I have some of those die sets in my collection, and they're really cheap. I think it's just $9 for the set. And I did a little bit of research. I couldn't find it anywhere else. Maybe it's one that somebody made but is no longer making. Anyway, I'm going to add that link, and then you can use your discretion whether you would like to purchase that or not. And no judgments here. We always like to save $1. Anyway, that cabinet makes, I think it really looks sweet. It has lots of little elements, including the dies to make the things that go inside. So no stamps, but those dies, yes. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me on this card making journey. I didn't know it was going to take so long to make this project, but if you've stuck around to the end, I really appreciate it. And anyway, see you next time. Hey, if you like this project and want to see more like it, let me know by giving me a thumbs up, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Take care.